Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, you thirsty bunch of beer drinkers, whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. We're recording this episode after a long night of socializing at Queen's Park during the annual Ontario Craft Brewers Speakers Tasting, so bear with me and my guest today. Hop Pop is the answer. That's what I'm drinking. This episode is brought to you by Hop Pop. I'm really excited for this episode. We have a great guest in the hot seat today. Josh McJannett is here, the co-founder of Dominion City Brewing and a good friend to the brewery. You all know Dominion City. They're a well-known, reputable brewery here in Ontario. Makers of brands like Civic Pilsner, Town & Country Blonde Ale, Two Flags IPA, Lost Train Stout, and that other blue and yellow can, Sun Split. It's very close to Sunnyside. A brewery based in Gloucester. I probably butchered that. Just outside of Ottawa, who have been around since 2014. And like I said, a much-loved brewery at that. Josh and I have had the pleasure to get to know each other and the teams, Dominion and Great Lakes, over the years. Through our collaborative nature of the industry, we've done beers together, organized events, shared ideas and insights, worked on government issues with each other, drank beers as a team, and worked through many hangovers together. Josh will walk us through the history of Dominion, shed some light on his past, discuss how the brewery and the industry has evolved, talk a little bit about the OCB, that's the Ontario Craft Brewers Association, and much, much more. So let's get into it. But first, I'm going to crack another Hop Pop while you hear a word from our sponsors.
Toronto's Festival of Beer returns to Bandshell Park at Exhibition Place between July 26th and 28th. Come to TFOB and enjoy the best of beer and beverage, showcasing over 400 varieties of products, the best of bites, eats, treats, and more. And the best beats on the Bandshell stage, including headliners Cypress Hill, Josh Ross, Taking Back Sunday, all rocking the Bandshell stage. Don't judge, just enjoy. TFOB, July 26th to 28th. Tickets available at beerfestival.ca.
Welcome to Between Two Fermenters, Josh. It's good to have you join us. As I was saying in the intro, you and I have developed a great relationship over the years, and I always appreciate the conversations we have. So first things first, welcome, and are you having a beer?
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here, and I'm definitely not having a beer. You and I had our beer recently, very recently, and so, yeah, no, not today.
So we're being responsible adults at this hour of the day, and maybe that'll help with the conversation after what we imbibed on last night. So I know who you are, Josh, but why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you, and your former government work, because I find that interesting.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a co-founder at Dominion City Brewing Company. This year will be our 10th year in business, which is nothing compared to GLB's 35 plus at this point. But
37, yeah, 37. You're close.
We're still doing it. Before that, yeah, I had another life, another career. I worked in government affairs. Did a stint in politics. Went to journalism school. Didn't have beer on my radar, but I'm so glad that it wound up being like this. We get to make something we're proud of. Beer has a way of being welcome in other people's cool thing, and that's honestly the best part of my job.
And right now you're recording this, or we're recording this, and you're at a bakery now, correct? You're sitting in a bakery?
Yeah, that's right. We happen to have a sourdough stone mill bakery next door to the brewery. It's actually my partner Gabby runs it. It's called Almanac, and this is my office when I need to do anything that's not in an open setting. So yeah, I come down and chill in the storage room in the basement.
So you got beer on one side and you got sourdough on the other. Like that's a dream of mine. That's heaven. Before we get into the real hard stuff, Josh, I got to ask, we have a lot in common. I think the biggest thing is location. Dominion City is based in, how do you say it, Gloucester? Gloucester?
I mean, I like hearing you say it all the different ways. Yeah, no.
Gloucester.
I want to go with yours, but I say Gloucester.
Okay, Gloucester. Okay, so you guys are in Gloucester, but your website and everything else says Ottawa. You're known as an Ottawa brewery. Same as us here we're in Etobicoke, but everyone says we're in Toronto. Why don't you say the name, man? Why do you go with Ottawa?
Why are we not leaning into it? It's a great question. Yeah. I guess, back in the day, like you, we were forced into a mega city or a megacity. And, so I guess technically we pay taxes in the city of Ottawa, but I think it had been a county of Gloucester before. It's still here. There's some old signs and library branches that used to belong to the municipality of Gloucester. And you know what? The flame still burns bright for my fellow Gloucesterites. You're right. We should be representing them better. They earned better than
Gloucesterites,
that.
I like that. Yeah, we have Etobians here, and shout out to our friends over at Beer and Other Shit podcast, Craig, who dubbed Glorious or Etobicoke Glorious Etobicoke. So you got to lean into that, and I think you'll go places with that. So you mentioned it, 10 years for Dominion. That's quite an achievement. What the hell inspired you to get into the beer business? You were saying you were government work, and just one day you decided, hey, I want to get into beer. Like, do you regret that decision?
Only some days. No, I've got the best job in the world, man. I mean, my old job was great. Lots of interesting stuff, and I could have stayed in suit world. I think there was a path to do that if I wanted to do it, but I got jealous of people who make tables. The guy who makes a table, or person who makes a table, if it goes well, people eat off this at least a generation. Maybe your grandkids are still eating off a table. Turns out I'm absolutely garbage at making tables.
I was going to ask if you ever made a table.
Nobody would want to. It would not sit straight. No right angles. But I liked the idea of making something, and it felt so far from what I was doing every day. And I know beer doesn't last as long as a good table, but we made something. Within a month, 6 weeks, you're getting feedback from friends about it. Some of it was good, some of it was god awful in my backyard. But that was very addictive. And to have something out in the world that has something of you in it is it's a cool feeling. When what I knew was working for big companies, and some days coming home and feeling like I don't know that the impact of me being at my desk today is all that great.
So I don't think I've heard that story, Josh. But so again, did you have a homebrewing background, or was it a group of you guys that decided? Like, what made it beer? Like you said, you couldn't make a table, but why did you choose beer?
You know what? I don't have an amazingly satisfying answer to this question. I have a really clear memory of having a rough day and messaging a longtime friend of mine, Andrew Kent, now my business partner, and saying, "Man, we got to do something together." I just feel like you got the energy for this. I feel like we could do something together. And we'd been homebrewing, had started homebrewing. But I think we just decided to take it more seriously. And it was really just about an outlet for this like agency, this like, I have an idea, I'm going to see it through, I'm going to see what happens. That became really addictive. So I can't say, some of these homebrewers turn pros, they've toiled for decades and they've perfected these recipes. And if you were drinking what I was making in 2010, 2011, I don't think you would have... I don't necessarily know. You'd have seen the path I wanted for myself at that moment, but we figured it out. And
what was the first beer that you brewed? Like any of those homebrewed beers, did they ever make its way into the Dominion lineup at one point?
I'm gonna tell you this. This is embarrassing. The first beer we ever made was a kit, a stovetop kit of Pilsner, and we made it in my kitchen in July and fermented it hot in a closet. Sweet. And it was bright brown. It was awful, but I don't know, that struck the match for me.
And a lot of homebrewers, they start like that, and then but they don't say it was terrible. They say it was probably the best beer they ever made because it was the first one. But this industry is very famous for that. People start breweries just because I could brew a 5-gallon batch on my stovetop, and within a year they're running a brewery. So some of them aren't successful, many of them aren't, but you and Andrew have created a lovely brewery in Gloucester. All episode. But you guys have created something. So 10 years from a home brewing in the backyard to being known as one of Ontario's best breweries. So tell us about Dominion. In your opinion, in your own words, what does the brewery stand for? Where are you? Who are you? And what does it stand for?
Yeah. I mean, our slogan is makers of very good beer. And I like that because it means something to me. What we do, we want to do well. We want to do it in a way that includes people. We think what we do should truly be for everyone, which actually is an onus on us to do it in that kind of a way, not just to say, oh, it's here for you if you want it. I think being a real member and being connected to our community has proven to be one of the threads that I think has been really important. Don't get me wrong, I love beer. I'm extremely proud of the beer we make. At this point, for me, I think the most rewarding part is about like the doors that beer opens, and about the relationships that it's led to, and the things I've learned from people here on the ground in Gloucester.
There we go.
And beyond. I just did it. I dropped it. Who are doing real stuff. I mean, I know you guys know this well because it's been a big part of the GLB formula as well. But, knowing Aaron, who runs our local food cupboard, and being meaningfully involved in what they do and finding ways to support the work that they do, getting to know other people in the community and like bringing them into our place and doing what we do, but making it part of their thing. That's what I love. And I think to the extent that it's worked, I think that's been part of the formula.
That's one of the questions I was going to touch on here. Or one of the threads is the community. You're well known. Dominion is well known for all the things you guys do. Whether it be brewing beer or doing like the food bank or anything that you guys, it seems like you're always doing something that gives back to the community. So it opens doors. The brewing industry opens doors for you to do that. And that's a big part of what the brewery is. What does it mean to you personally every time? And how do you seek out these organizations to work with?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing to acknowledge is like, that's hardly unique to us. I think it's actually the norm in beer. And I think people who run small breweries, local breweries, community breweries, that's second nature. And I think a lot of people are doing that in their own way, and actually love seeing how it shows up for other breweries. And we learn from that all the time. But the first thing to say is like, I think this is part of the formula. And I think part of the reasons why it matters to people is like, we live in this world. I don't know if you're just going to get philosophical for a second, but sometimes it drives me nuts. I live in a world and it feels like nothing is actually from anywhere. It just shows up on my porch. And I think that connection that like a real person made this, and sometimes not only did a real person make this, but they can tell me about the person who grew the thing that made this, and I'm getting it handed to me over a bar. I think there's like a connection that people get to that, and it's rarer than we think. And I
beer
think
really does. Yeah. Breweries really do that. It's all about community. It's all about, grassroots. It's about creating, as we say at the brewery, memorable experiences with each sip. That's why home delivery has been such a huge factor at Great Lakes since the pandemic. We've continued to do home delivery. I know you at Dominion had a very successful home delivery program during those days. And those touch points where our drivers would get to show up on someone's doorstep and have that 2-minute conversation about, oh, it was good to see you last week. Here's this new beer this week. And how did you like it? And it's those relationships that go a lot more than, you go into the grocery store and buy a bottle or a tube of toothpaste. Like there's no connection to the establishment on that. And you're not going to get excited about a new strain of toothpaste or new brand of toothpaste.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk about the brewery, how it's evolved over the 10 years, the period of 10 years that you've been open. Just shed a little bit of light on those early days to where you guys stand today.
Yeah, I mean, I remember really clearly making the decision that we were going to take on a lease. We were going to give a go. We raised money from friends and family, also not uncommon, but it was, especially early on, very bootstrapped. We had a couple folks who had been like mentors, former bosses, that kind of thing, who believed in us. And, we kind of walked them through the plan, and they said, yeah, this sounds promising. At the end of the day, it was literally like $1,000 at a time. We created the Dominion City Councilor Program. And we locked all of our friends in a room. We made them drink our homebrew. We told them we were serious. We were going to try and do this. And we raised like $75,000. And the deal was you got your $1,000 back in 3 years with a growler a month in between as your interest payment. Or you could opt for interest, and most people wanted the growler, which was, I guess, a good sign of our homebrew quality at that point. It had improved since the Pilsner disaster, but that gave us the credibility. We went to the bank and tried to get a Canada Small Business Financing loan. We had something to work with beyond just our own pocket change. And I remember really clearly signing the lease. We got a former T-shirt printing factory in the back of an industrial park, literally the cheapest light industrial real estate in Ottawa. That's how we got to Gloucester.
There you go.
Really want to know. But we took the keys on January 1st, 2014, and it was like a blizzard. Like, I'm talking like sideways snow. The car was buried by the time we got out of there, and it was a disaster inside. And I just remember Andrew and I looking at each other and being like, I really hope we're good at selling beer on tap, because no one is ever going to come here.
You had to reinforce your dream on the first day.
Absolutely. And many times later. But the greatest thing is that the Gloucesterites have really gotten behind us. Like that was the key in the early days. We're 10 years old. We've been at the LCBO for 2, and I can make a virtue out of a necessity. But the truth was, our whole model was we make stuff, especially in the early days, in really small batches. It's changing all the time. Last time you were here, I got something new since then. Try this thing. And it was very direct. It was like we knew people over the bar. 3 o'clock on a Friday, we would open. We'd be open Fridays and Saturdays only. I think to this day, 3 o'clock on Friday is still the busiest hour of the week.
So people got accustomed. Yeah, they got accustomed to that. That's their habit, eh? Going in at 3 o'clock.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a great research and development situation, right? Especially at the tap room, you can dabble with some new creations, and you're going to get feedback right on the spot. So that's how we use it too. We'll put in a new beer, put it on tap, and we'll see the reaction. If it's a hit, we'll do it again. But yeah, okay, go back to that early day, that 2014. You got the keys, you got in there, you shit your pants when you saw what it was like, the blizzard and everything. And you've taken it into what it is today. So yeah, go back into that story.
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, like our delivery vehicle was literally Andrew's sedan. He would like think we ruined the back seat of that car. But yeah, it was. We kept our jobs. I worked two more than full-time jobs for a year. Some days you'd almost be falling asleep in traffic. It was kind of unsafe, but you wanted to be there. You wanted to be doing. It was exciting. It felt meaningful, and you had friends and family around pulling for you, and like I said, a whole community that really showed up. And that's really, I think, where just beer was at that time. Like you guys, I know you've been through a few waves and have felt it at different times, but at that moment, it was like the birth of a galaxy or something. There was so much happening. 2012,
2015 was like almost a third rebirth of craft beer in Ontario. We had it in the 1984 with Brick, and then we had it in the late 1980s, like right at the end of the 80s with Sleeman and Creemore and Great Lakes, Amsterdam, Wellington. And then you get into the 90s and everyone was opening. But by the end of the 90s, everyone was closing. 2000s, it started off slow, and then boom, 2010, a whole bunch of breweries started, and then 2012 that's when I always say is when the craft beer expansion really happened in the province, and then it's just continued to go up until the last couple of years haven't been kind to our industry. I know this is your interview, but I also know you're a historian of beer, so I got a question for you. Actually, is as someone who has a good understanding of how this has gone a couple times, and understanding that we're in a moment where, it's been easier, it's been more fun, I think, for a lot of people. If you ask them, they'd acknowledge that. What has worked to get people through those times? And as GLB has done a couple times, like what are the breweries that make it figure out about this? I'll tell you because I like you. No, it's staying true to who you are. The biggest thing that we see at bar and restaurants is when they're struggling, they ask for more things. Then the breweries that do those things are the ones that need to do those things to get the line. We just keep, our value, our beers are solid, our people are solid. And it's not about selling, again, it's not about selling a beer. It's about selling a relationship. So the sales reps, your marketing team, your brewers, your packagers, when they're done their shift at the end of the day, they're in the tap room having a beer with a Tobian, or we have the brew pub, so you can have a beer with the owner of the brewery at the end of the bar, and it's just those connections. So that's one. Two, we like to say hustle. It's just a big hustle. You always have to just keep moving forward, and I think we have the benefit of being an older brewery and have been around for a long time with people with a lot of experience. And it's just keep pushing forward. Just know who you are, stick to who you are. And we have a vision of being, known as Ontario's local brewery. We want people in Windsor to pick up a Great Lakes at the local LCBO and say, yeah, this was packaged a week ago. And they can identify with the brand and like the brand and feel as it is their local beer. So that's what we're trying to do in Ottawa as well too. We have a lot of fans in Ottawa, and just keep going, just keep doing what you do, and just keep investing in your people, and things will eventually work out. So that's my long-winded answer to your excellent interviewing skills. Thank you. But talking about that, collaborations have been a big thing for you guys as well too, and I know we've collabed with you on a couple of things. So let's walk back through some of those. Let's tell some stories about those collabs, because we went down to Ottawa and got to do a beer with you guys, and I can honestly say it was one of the worst hangovers I've had in a long, long time. And you're the only brewery that is a Pedialyte or electrolytes that are, you have them at the brewery for visiting breweries to have, or your own stuff.
Usually in the fridge. Yeah. For sure.
And then you guys came down to Toronto and we did Capitals 2.0. So how big are collaborations with you and Scott, the brewer there, head brewer?
Yeah.
How important is collaboration at Dominion?
Yeah, it's been a big thread. And just quickly too, Scott, our head brewer, operating guy now, came to us as a volunteer. He's like employees, minus one. Mm-hmm. I like to joke, but huge part. Like you talk about like me burning a batch of Pilsner and us getting to where we've gone. A big explanation in between those two facts is explained by Scott and the team. He's really built around it. Good guy, cares a lot about quality. Put a lot of pressure on us early on, frankly, about like keeping quality. I remember agonizing about whether to sell or not sell something, and he was very much at the mind that like if it isn't right, it's wrong. Get rid of it. And it's
good advice.
Over the long term, that's definitely served us extremely well. That day, it was stressful, but anyway, Scott and I came to your place. I forgot to pack my Pedialyte, and I also suffered. So that's a whole other story. But in general, though, I think we've taken a ton of inspiration, and I'm not blowing smoke. When we came to your place, I think it was just over a year ago now. I don't know, a bit of a low point. And I walked out of teaming up and hanging out at your place and seeing what you guys do and learning about your history. And it's invigorating sometimes. You hang out with other people who have been in the trenches. They know like the things that are hard for you are probably hard for other people like you. And sometimes it's just like really, really, really helpful to like get the fires, going a little bit again. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is I love getting out to hang with other people and learn about their journey and get some ideas for my own.
Yeah. So I think one of the things you guys have done well with your clubs is you will take, whether it be a sales rep, yourself, or your brewing team, and you do these collabs, and at your own space, you guys make time for these visiting breweries. Your hospitality has been amazing. It's well known in the industry that you guys take care of other brewers when they're at Dominion. And that goes a long way. That it's the whole purpose of collab is to learn and experience new things from other people. And, some of those breweries take that back to their own respective breweries and make something different. And that's the whole premise, in my opinion, of it is about the beer, but at the end of the day, it's just about getting to know each other and doing stuff like this. Hey, Josh, you want to come on and talk about Dominion City on the podcast? Of course. Yeah. It's so it's those relationships. So everything goes back to relationships and suffering through hangovers together. So I got a couple questions. You just said you hit a low point, and I'm glad we could be there for you to pick that spirit back up, because you guys, again, not blowing smoke up your ass, do a lot of great things. But what have been some of the biggest struggles owning a craft brewery in today's market? Or just in your history?
Yeah, and maybe some of this is just true for like any business too. But if you start at point A and you're fortunate enough to grow to point B, chances are really good that the things that you were good at that helped you in the first phase are not necessarily the skills and the things you're going to have to be good at when you get to the next point. And so, just for me, like figuring out how to not be terrible at a whole bunch of new things that I now need to be at least okay at has just been it's been the exciting part of it. It's like feels like growth. It feels cool to learn new things, but it's also uncomfortable. So there's just been there's like growth spurts, moments where you look back and you're like, we were really out over our skis because I didn't know what I was doing at that time, and we fumbled our way through it, and having survived to the other side, you can look back and say, okay, I really learned something from that. But when you're in those moments, sometimes it feels a little like being on the dark side of the moon, and you hope you're going to come back around the other side.
Well, you got scars, you got battle scars, you got wounds, and you learn the hard way. And I think that's what 90% of the breweries, that's how they start. They start with the owner or co-owners, co-founders, chief bottle washers, or we don't do bottles anymore, but they're on the canning line, they're fixing a dishwasher. It's those little things that in our industry that really leads to good work ethic, but also just understanding every little thing of your business and your brewery, and so much heart and love goes into that so it's a struggle, but at the same time you're growing personally from those struggles, and then the scars just make you look cool, right?
Yeah, that's right. As long as you're standing to show them off, I guess it looks cool.
So name some of the struggles that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, the first, I don't want to make this a pandemic podcast. I know there have been a lot of those, but those first few months, I know you felt it too. In some weird, perverse, sick way, it was almost invigorating. Like there was like a purpose, we wanted to keep our team working. We wanted to, obviously, not run out of money. We wanted to keep the lights on. People were scared, and we had something that was like a small reward, a small comfort at the end of your day that we could bring to your doorstep. And we figured out how to do that quickly. Literally the first day we did home delivery is a disaster. There's just like printed paper everywhere. The system was a mess. You had to figure this whole thing out and make it happen. And so in those moments, it was like very hard, but it felt very purposeful, and it felt exciting.
Yeah, we were on the phone with you guys a couple times right at the start because it was 4 days in for us. But I remember seeing or talking with Andrew, not Andrew Kent, Andrew Farrell, shout out to the mullet. He was using some sort of a platform, a routing platform. So we were sharing, even from like day 4 of the pandemic, our two brewers were sharing info with each other. How can we make this better for everyone? And so those early days, I know exactly what you're talking about. And the whole shift in business, it was invigorating in a sense because people, not me, it's not my money, but Peter Bullett's, people depend on you as the owner, Josh, and Andrew Kent, to keep them employed and to keep them safe, but also to bring them joy as well too. So it's not just about the customer, it's about your whole team, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think we felt like we had a team that rose to the occasion. We had like a purpose to be doing it. The surprise for me was that you can call it a hangover if you want, but it was actually the coming out of it all and piecing together whatever was going to replace what had been, and realizing it's not going to be the same. That was really hard, and it required placing bets, and we got some of them wrong. I think we had a strong hunch that quickly people are going to want to go back, and this direct to consumer model is going to carry on, and we're going to get everybody back in here looking to have a great time now that they're allowed. And our bar and restaurant customers are going to be firing on all cylinders, and we put resources and people into places, and through no fault of their own, we were just wrong about some of it. And so then you're in a moment where you're like, oh, geez. I remember in 2022, which is kind of not long before I came to hang with you at that low point, like it felt like we were between two bell curves. It was like the peak of we're 100% direct to consumer. All of our beers sold in a can, direct from us over our website. We're bringing it to you tomorrow. That was over and declining. And there was we were nowhere near getting back to where we were, let alone growing on the wholesale front. And so we're like stuck in this divot. And it was really very, very challenging. And it felt like ripping the guts out of a plane while you're still flying it and hoping you've like rewired it in a way that doesn't crash.
And that's again, you can't go through it by yourself, Josh, and you have to bring the team together again. And I think, I don't know this to be a fact, but you telling them what you're feeling and going through is only going to make the team stronger, come out on the other side with, listening to all these ideas coming, not just from your management team, but, everyone at the shop, at the brewery. I got a couple more questions here for you before we get into some rapid fire. So I want to make sure we have time to get into these ones. What does the future look like, if you can kind of boil it down to, you've had the high and lows and you're back right now and you're just kicking ass. What's the future look like?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think our vision for what we want to do with Dominion City is we want to be a great Ottawa brewery. A great Gloucester brewery
with Ottawa ties. There you go.
With Ottawa ties. Yeah, we want to be great at belonging to this place, and I think there's room to grow here. Yeah, we want to be great in our market, and we want to make sure that we're like connected to our community. The other thing we've done is we've created a new product. We make a non-alcoholic sparkling water called City Seltzer. It's a totally different business for us. I don't believe in chasing every trend. I know I can't be good at everything that people are going to want, which is changing all the time. We believe in beer, and we wanted to make something that could truly be for everyone. Like kids can drink it. It can go to a grocery store, belong at a cafe without a liquor license. And it's been really neat and kind of reinvigorating, to be honest, to build a new thing from scratch and apply the lessons you learned the first time you did it to a new thing. So that's been really exciting.
And I guess the theme of this talk today has been, we've said hangover a lot more than any other episode, but those city seltzers are really nice when you're hungover. The cucumber, was it the cucumber mint or?
Cucumber, it's cantaloupe and cucumber, actually.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So those are in grocery stores now too, right? You have those in grocery stores?
We do. Yeah, no. Distributed across Ontario, Whole Foods, Sobeys, Bulk Barn, across Canada. Yeah.
Good for you guys. So speaking of that, let's go back over to the beer side of things. Sunsplit, I think, is arguably your number one selling beer across Ontario.
It is our best selling beer.
So you have LCBO sales now. So what can people find in LCBO? Sunsplit, and do you have any other brands in the LCBO?
Yeah, so Sunsplit's there for just about 2 years now. Town and Country is a blonde ale we literally made in my backyard, and it's changed and improved since those days. But it is true that's a brand we launched with, and one we were always happy to have, but I don't think we invested in growing it. And I'm actually really excited. It's a new challenge, but trying to take what's old and reintroduce people to something like that. I think it's an interesting challenge, and I don't know if you feel this. We're never going to give up the experimentation, but I think part of the challenge, the new thing we got to learn is like, how do you make a brand consistent, great, that's something people feel connected to for a long time and have it last?
Well, that's what we went through years ago at Great Lakes. We were well known for all of our one-offs and big IPAs coming and going. Over the last number of years, we said we have to focus on our year-round brands at retail. We just have to focus on them. Great Lakes Lager, Octopus Wants to Fight, Canuck, Pompous Ass. So we just continued to invest in those brands, and it's worked out for us, thankfully. And then have that experimentation on the side where we keep introducing new things, and the innovation keeps the brewers having fun. It keeps the salespeople really engaged in getting a rotating line, and it excites people in Windsor to Ottawa to Sudbury, Thunder Bay to get a new beer from Great Lakes. But yeah, it just goes back to you focusing on those brands. And when you say like Town and Country and working on it, and it's, the old favorite, we took, I don't know how many years to redevelop the recipe and the look for Great Lakes Premium Lager. It was Golden Horseshoe, Great Lakes Lager, Blonde Lager. So feel your pain on that one. But you'll come.
I just want to say, I think you nailed it. I had one last night, and I you'll know I'm being genuine here because I told you it's my favorite can design. So there we go.
All right. OCB, let's talk about that. We were at Queen's Park on Wednesday, the 17th of April. It was the annual speakers tasting with a bunch of Ontario Craft Brewery Association members, where you just, you crack open some cans and pour some samples for MPPs, their staff, bureaucrats. You were there. Great Lakes was there. It was a good time. But let's talk about the OCB, because you're a new member, and I don't want to turn this into an OCB plug, but you're a new member, and why did you do that, and what does it mean to you now?
You're a good enforcer. That's why I'm a member. No, I mean, I'm only half kidding, but going back to our collab day at your place, I mean, we did have a good conversation about how, hey, your voice matters. If you want something, you gotta speak up. You gotta put some time and effort in. And if you're not gonna do it, who's gonna do it? And I know, Mandy from left field had told me the same thing before that and had planted the seed. But I had a career in GR, and it just wasn't where I wanted to put the energy early on. And we were so small. We weren't at LCBO. It just didn't feel like a huge priority. And as a consequence, we really did very little. We just weren't involved for a long time. And I think by the time you and I were sitting there having that conversation, I realized that it was like overdue. That the truth is, this is a real business. This is a real industry. A lot of people dealing with the same challenges, and like you should be involved to join the table, so to speak. So your invitation or kick, whichever it was, worked. And I honestly have been really enjoying getting to know the OCB, getting to know Scott, the president, and talking to the other members. Like I'm really excited about it.
And if a non-member happens to be listening to this, a non-OCB member, what's one thing that you would say to them about the OCB?
Just that it's more about you than you think, because I didn't think it was about me. I can concoct all these excuses, and I think one of mine was, it's really about the larger size breweries and their priorities, and I'm not even, I don't want to take the time and even think about what I need, but I'm sure they're not thinking about what I need, and I was just wrong. Like to be honest, it's been way more. It's just been way more collaborative and way more real. That's the other thing. I think the beer tax campaign that the OCB has set out, I think A, the execution has been really tight, but B, it's like that actually is the number one issue for us. It is the thing that would make the most difference. Is if we could address the fact that we pay the highest beer taxes in any jurisdiction in the country, I could put more money into my business and more money into the people who work here, and we can continue paying taxes for a long, long time to come, which is really my goal. And so I like having a reason and something we're pushing for has really felt good.
Yeah, and it's all the things that the OCB has done over the last 4 or 5 years that benefit the breweries, benefit the smallest of the small breweries. Home delivery was the big push. We got that. Things like serving a pint in your tap room, like you couldn't do that 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Little things like keeping your store open past the LCBO hours or the beer store hours. Little tiny incremental wins like that have all come from the association. So it's good to have more voices and opinions, diverse opinions sitting around the table, and so it's great that you're there now. And from that, where do you think the industry is going? In your opinion, where do you see? We've had a couple down years altogether, but crystal ball, where do you see it going?
We've been drinking beer for at least 4,000 years. I have a hunch we're going to keep drinking it for a few thousand more. I think the generation behind mine has a different approach, a different relationship, different taste, different whatever. I also think there's probably young people out there who, when they hit their early 20s, they're really going to be ready for a beer.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we have in spades that the replacement options that are out there for an alcoholic beverage don't have is this direct connection.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a canned cocktail factory, with very few exceptions, in every community. Literally, there's somebody who works in a brewery in every postal code in Ontario. Nobody else gets to say that. And I think over the long term, direct connection, real human beings doing real stuff matters. And I think that's a huge strength we've got that's not going anywhere.
Are you sure you're not getting back into politics? Because that was a damn good answer.
No, thanks. Well, I'll stop there then. Stop before you say too much is usually the best approach.
Okay, we're going to go to an ad with Mr. Holy Mackinac, Joe Bowen himself. And when we come back, Josh, do you want to stick around for some rapid fire questions?
Hit me.
Let's do it. Hang tight.
Holy Mackinac! What a beer from Great Lakes Brewery. Grab this super crushable, ultra refreshing, clean and crisp lager on April the 18th and help support the amazing Sick Kids Foundation in the process. Supporting local. Never tasted so good.
Okay, Josh, you ready? We're going to get into some rapid fire questions. You can handle this? Let's do it. All right. What beer have you been enjoying recently?
We made a collab with Slake called Still Friends. It's got an experimental hop that I'd never tried before. We make a lot of hoppy beer. This is one of my faves we've made in a while. Admittedly, that's an answer about my own beer.
That's fine. That's okay. Yeah, okay. It's a collaboration here. Collaboration. Now, give a plug to another Ontario brewery.
The gang from town are coming tomorrow. Jeff, also an OCB member, new last year. Mm-hmm. They're in Whitby. They make great stuff. They showed us an amazing time when we were down there. I'm really excited to have them here tomorrow. Love what they're doing. We're
going to have Jeff on the show one day. I was just talking to Jeff earlier today. Jeff out at town in Whitby, fantastic brewery doing some pretty amazing things. So great to hear you guys are collabing. That's awesome. Favorite beer and food pairing?
Ooh, good one.
On the spot, man. Rapid fire. Let's go.
West Coast IPA and spicy fish tacos.
Ooh, good one. Name one thing that people might not know about Dominion City. That you're located in Gloucester.
In Gloucester?
In Gloucester.
Everyone knows that now. I didn't answer your question. I don't know, man. I'm spinning here.
Okay, let's move on. We'll just say Andrew Farrell's mullet. What book are you reading right now? I know you guys just have a book program or a book club, but what book are you reading?
Yeah, this is not a great answer for this show. I'm reading a book called The Anxious Generation about people who've been ruined by growing up on their phones. And I know you've got kids and I've got kids, and I've been thinking a lot about how I don't want to raise my kid on a phone.
Oh, I'm going to have to look that up, and I'm looking for something new to read, so that is a good suggestion. Best hangover cure. There we go. Got back to it.
I feel like this episode has sort of been brought to us by Pedialyte, so let's go with that.
Pedialyte, all right. All right. Great stuff, Josh. Thanks, man, for taking the time today. We'll get you back on the show in the future to just keep talking all about Dominion, just keep pumping the tires there. As I've said in the show, and to you personally, I love what you've created with Dominion, you and Andrew Kent, and it's awesome to see what you've been able to accomplish in the 10 years. Not many people in this industry nowadays are getting to that milestone, so congratulations, and beers soon.
Thanks. Appreciate you doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Cheers, Josh.
Okay, right on.
Cole's Notes. It's time to hear from our man in the lab, Cole Raiskums, and another edition of his Cole's Notes. Cole will be diving, but not literally, into the science behind what the sunny weather does to your beer. Take it away, Cole.
Thanks, Troy. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Cole's Notes segment. With the weather outside improving, many of us will be moving out into the sunshine for patio beers. However, as nice as it feels, the sun and the heat can have a negative impact on the freshness of your beer. Today, we're going to dive into the science behind what the sunny weather does to your beer and give you some tips on how to keep it as fresh as possible. I'm sure many of you have heard of skunked beer before. This happens when isoalpha acids, which give our beer its hoppy bitterness, are hit with UV light. The isoalpha acids undergo a chemical reaction which converts them into 3-methyl-2-butene 1-thiol, or MBT for short. MBT is similar to the stinky chemicals skunks make to deter their predators. That's why if you leave your beer out in the sun for too long, it can start to develop a bit of a skunkiness. The same thing happens to clear bottles of beer when they're sitting in the sun. If you plan on sitting out for a long time with your beer in the sun, we recommend putting your beer in the shade to keep it tasting fresh. Sunlight also doesn't pass through aluminum cans, so you can drink directly from the can to preserve it too. Another thing to consider as it gets warmer is heat. When a can of beer is stored warm, it artificially ages the beer through increased rates of oxidation reactions. When the beer begins to oxidize, the flavor compounds from the hops and the malt are altered on a molecular level, causing them to lose their aromas and, in extreme cases, taste stale. To prevent this from happening, we recommend you store your beer in a cool, dark place, like a fridge or a cellar, until it's ready to drink. Much like dogs and children, never leave your beer in a hot car. Who knew that science could taste so bad?
Ooh, I see what you did there, Cole. Very good. So what I got from all that is you're telling us you have to drink your beer as fast as you can when you're out on a patio.
You still enjoy it. Like, take a moment to enjoy your beer, but don't be nursing it over a few hours, holding it up in the peak of the sunlight.
What about the old coaster over the glass trick when you might have to go to the washroom and you're out on a patio and you put the coaster on? Does that do anything really?
I mean, it prevents a lot of like the CO2 from escaping as fast. It can prevent bugs from flying into your beer, which is another concern with warm weather, but I don't think it's really doing too much from that. I'd say the best bet is put it either in a shady part on whatever surface you're sitting in, or even like at the bottom of your chair, assuming there's no other animals and stuff like that nearby, like dogs.
Or just drink it fast.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Cole. Another great edition of Cole's Notes.
Take care.
Cheers.
2024 marks the 30th anniversary of the Etobicoke Sports Hall of Fame. Founded in 1994, the hall continues to thrive and honor for all time those individuals and organizations who achieve the highest standard of distinction in sport, inspiring and supporting the pursuit of excellence by student and Special Olympics athletes within our community. President and chair of the board, Joanne Noble, is always awe-inspired by how the Etobicoke community continues to produce amazing people through sport. From the beginning, after the great Johnny Bauer was the first to be inducted into the Hall, there are now 176 honored members 30 years later. And just as important, the Hall has provided over $150,000 in scholarships for Humber College and Etobicoke High School student athletes and Etobicoke Special Olympics athletes.
Around the industry.
So just a couple things in this Around the Industry segment. We're going to start off with some sad news. It came to our attention just last week that Brian Morin, the co-founder and owner of Toronto's Beer Bistro, who first opened it in 2003, quickly taking it to become one of Canada's best places for beer and food, he passed away. So it's really sad news for the entire industry. He did some amazing things at Beer Bistro when before he sold it. He had things like Dogfish Head beer dinner. Duda CL from Montreal came in. The Dogfish Head dinner was really awesome. Sam Calgione was here. He imbibed on a lot of drinks, and he was very, very social with everyone. It was a great time. Golden Tap Awards, Cass Enright's Golden Tap Awards were always held there. It's a sad day. He was a legend back in the early 2000s and into the mid 2010s. With Beer Bistro and all the things that he created from a culinary perspective. In 2007 or so, I moved to Toronto, and it was at Beer Bistro during some of these events that I met industry folks like the late Joel Manning, who was at Mill Street, Ken Woods, Jason Britton, who's now over at Cameron's. These legends of the beer industry at the time were all hanging out there, and it was a real big deal to get your beer on at Beer Bistro because you knew it was going to get the Brian Morin treatment. So he sold the business years ago and passed away much too young. Rest in peace, Brian. On Wednesday, April 17th, as you heard Josh and I discuss, a lot of breweries from the Ontario Craft Brewers were at Queen's Park, the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, for the annual speakers tasting. So this all happened, I don't even know, 16 years ago, I think it is. Former Speaker Steve Peters, who's now either the mayor or city councillor out in the St. Thomas area, he started this, and he said, how come we're not selling Ontario or offering Ontario-made beer in at Queen's Park whenever they have events? So he started this tasting where MPPs and staff can vote on their favorite beverages of the night. Whoever gets voted on gets to have their beer at the Legislative Assembly for the entire year. So that was on the 17th. There was lots of breweries like Left Field, Collective Arts, Clifford, Muskoka, Steam Whistle, Nickelbrook. There was a whole bunch of us. And every time an MPP came over to the Great Lakes booth, we asked each one of them to give us 9 cents if we cracked open a can, because that's how much they charge us in can tax every time we put liquid into a can. So we hope to have some more good news to share in the coming months about tax reform here in Ontario. And that's it for Around the Industry. That's it. That's all, folks. Episode 7, like a good collaboration beer, has moved from the mash tun to the fermenters. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Josh and hope that you'll be able to experience some fresh Dominion City beer in the near future. And their city seltzers, which, as you heard, go well with hangovers. Today's episode was fueled by our cans of our Hop Pop, which you can find at our online shop or both retail store locations. You can visit the brewery at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke or grab some delicious eats and fresh pours at a brew pub at 11 Lower Jarvis Street. If you have any content you'd love to hear us discuss on the show or just want to tell us what you're drinking, drop us a line at podcast@greatlakesbeer.com. Until next time, please remember to keep tipping your glass of fresh GLB in the right direction. Supporting local never tasted so good.
To learn more about what's happening at Great Lakes Brewery, visit greatlakesbeer.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter or follow Great Lakes Beer on your favorite social media platforms.